Israel has killed at least 45 people across Gaza as heavy strikes hit the north and south of the coastal enclave. A poll taken after Ecuador's presidential elections gives the victory to candidate Luisa Gonzalez in the last Sunday's runoff election. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Israel has killed at least 45 people across Gaza as heavy strikes hit the north and south of the coastal enclave that also suffers from a severe humanitarian crisis due to the Israeli blockade. According to on-ground reports, 6 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli air raid that hit a makeshift barbershop in central Han Yunis, while at least 10 others were killed after Israel bombed a home in Bani Suheila. Attacks in Rafah in the south, Gaza City, and at one in north targeting tents and houses also left a number of fatal casualties. Over 51,000 Palestinians have been massacred by Israel since October 2023 as strikes on Gaza continue despite warnings from UN and measures from the International Court of Justice.
I was sleeping and woke up to my house collapsing on top of me. I didn't hear the sound of a missile or anything else. The house was collapsing. I got out and didn't know what was happening. People opened the door and started carrying my sons. 8 of our family were killed. We were 21 people.
And a protest movement led by nearly 1,000 Israeli Air Force veterans signing letters calling for an immediate end to the Gaza war has rapidly spread across the Israeli military, with thousands of reservists and retired soldiers from multiple elite units. These letters accuse Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government of prolonging the conflict for political reasons, exposing deep divisions and growing disillusionment within Israeli society and the military of the war's purpose and cost. The Israeli military responded by dismissing active reservists who signed the protest, while Netanyahu dismissed the dissent as the work of a small, foreign-influenced minority claims unsupported by evidence. The crisis has strained the military's reliance on reservists, with increasing numbers refusing to report to duty.
We are aware of the relative importance and weight of the brand Israeli Air Force pilots, and thought that it is exactly the kind of case where we should use this title in order to influence the society. The letter is not talking to the army, is not talking to pilots. He's aimed, and therefore we're not calling for any refusal or anything that the soldiers should do. As we thought, the moment that this letter was published, the whole country is talking about it for the past 3 or 4 days, and many other units of the army, of the armed forces, have followed us. There were letters by the armor units, thousands of them have signed, by the paratroopers, by the intelligence, by the Navy, and the special units, and many others. It's crystal clear that the renewal of the war is for political reasons and not for security reasons. It's very clear. The radical ministers have not even tried to hide it. They didn't do it behind closed door. They announce it every day. Either he renews the war or he doesn't have a government.
And in Yemen, at least 74 people were killed after U.S. bombing raids on the oil port of Ras Isa on the Red Sea coast. The United States Central Command carried out a series of airstrikes along the western coast of Yemen, this time targeting the oil port of Ras Isa, also injuring 171 people. The attack is one of the deadliest since the U.S. launched airstrikes against the Houthis and U.S. President Donald Trump took office in January. It should be noted that the operation came days after the Ansarullah movement announced on March 12 a ban on the entry of Israeli-linked vessels into regional waters in response to the Israeli blockade on aid entering the Gaza Strip. In this context, the spokesman of the Yemeni Armed Forces, Yahya Sadi, announced the launching of retaliatory attacks targeting U.S. aircraft carriers in the Red Sea and Arabian Seas following the strikes on the Ras Isa oil port, warning that the continued U.S. aggression would only lead to further confrontation.
The missile force, the unmanned aerial vehicle, and the naval forces carried out a double military operation targeting the U.S. aircraft carriers Truman and Vinson and their warships in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, with a number of cruise missiles and drones. This was the first operation against the Vinson since its arrival in the Arabian Sea. The United States military buildup and continued aggression against our country will only lead to further attacks, targeting, clashes, and confrontations.
The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, denounced that more than 400,000 minors have been displaced in the Democratic Republic of the Congo as a result of clashes between criminal group M23 and the armed forces. The organization also recalled that according to the latest report presented to the United Nations Security Council, there are 5 million displaced people living in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions in the African country. In this regard, UNICEF reported that most of the forced displacements have taken place in the provinces of Ituri, as well as in North and South Kivu. In addition, UNICEF denounced that attacks on children, including their recruitment, kidnapping, and abuse, have increased by 100% compared to 2024. We now have our first break coming up. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stressed Friday that Moscow is ready to facilitate dialogue between Tehran and Washington on Iran's nuclear program, provided that the legitimate interests of the Persian country are respected. During a joint press conference with his Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi, Lavrov stated they welcome the readiness to reach objective and mutually acceptable agreements. Furthermore, the head of the Russian diplomacy underscored that the best way to reach a pact is for the negotiations to focus exclusively on nuclear issues. For his part, Araghchi assured that his country will participate with seriousness and willingness in the talks, but warned that the unrealistic demands of the United States could hinder the process.
Отмечу особо, что Исламская Республика Иран.
I would like to especially note that the Islamic Republic of Iran is fully prepared to seek this agreement within the framework of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. This is a fundamental point that must be taken into account by those who are trying to burden the negotiations with issues that are not related to nuclear issues and thereby create a very risky situation.
Мы готовы помогать, посредничать, играть любую роль, которая...
We are ready to help, mediate, and play any role that, from Iran's point of view, will be useful and that will be acceptable to the United States. We proceed from the fact that the only option for an agreement, as the minister just said, is an agreement exclusively on nuclear issues.
По ядерным делам.
The president of China, Xi Jinping, ended Friday his tour of Southeast Asia as part of his strategy to strengthen alliances in the region and confront the U.S. tariff war. The 5-day tour of the Chinese head of state began on Monday in Vietnam, then the leader headed for Malaysia and completed his agenda in Cambodia. During his official visits, Xi Jinping signed dozens of cooperation deals, in various areas and held meetings to boost diplomatic relations to strengthen regional unity. The president further called for integration to build up a multipolar world based on cultural diversity in favor of global economic stability. And U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday stepped back from what already appears to be a lonely fight with China after Beijing said it would ignore the tariff game. The president himself told reporters in Washington that he would not like to see tariffs on China continue to increase, and confessed that he is hopeful of reaching an agreement. The announcement was made after the Asian stock markets, driven by China, presented a notorious increase in contrast with the collapse of Wall Street and the dollar. The head of state blamed it on Jerome Powell, the president of the Federal Reserve, and not on his tariff war against the world. And a new U.S. intelligence assessment found no coordination between the Tren de Aragua criminal organization and the Venezuelan government, once again contradicting claims made by President Trump. While the U.S. president had used this false claim to justify their invocation of the Alien Enemies Act and deportation of Venezuelan migrants, the new report from the National Intelligence Council, which draws input from 18 different agencies, repeatedly states that the gang is not coordinated with or supported by President Nicolás Maduro or any other senior official in the Venezuelan government. The assessment provided support and extensive sourcing for these assertions and is even more comprehensive and authoritative than an earlier intelligence product released in February, which had already contradicted Trump's allegations. We're going to our second break. We're going to be right back with more from the South. Welcome back. The international Argentinian pollster 3.0 gave the victory of Ecuador's runoff presidential elections to the Citizens' Revolution Movement candidate Luisa Gonzalez. According to a post-election survey conducted by the international pollster, more than 52.7% of the respondents said they had voted for Gonzalez, a result that comes up within the context of electoral irregularities and fraud denounced by the leaders of the Citizens' Revolution Movement. On the other hand, former President Rafael Correa highlighted the credibility of the Argentinian agency, which has conducted reliable surveys in different electoral processes across Latin American continents. Correa also denounced the violation of Article 127 of the Democracy Code, as well as the political harassment against candidate Luisa Gonzalez during her presidential campaign. Mexico, over 123 wildfires have been recorded Thursday in 28 out of the 32 states, affecting some 50,000 hectares of land. The National Forestry Commission stated that wildfires remain active in some 28 states of the country. They further detailed that northwest and south central regions have been the most hit. Flames are being spread to cities such as Sinaloa, Chihuahua, Osaka, and Morelos. The Commission briefed that so far, firefighters have managed to control 31 fires. Furthermore, CONAFOR requested the community to be aware of the situation, so they must avoid burning garbage, throwing lit cigarette butts, among other actions that could set a fire. And in northern Italy, heavy rainfalls brought about damages in addition to the overflowing of rivers, power outages, and evacuations, namely in the Piemonte region. Likewise, authorities issued a red alert for Tuscany and Emilia-Romagna. In this context, Florentine authorities ordered the closure of monuments, museums, and other cultural sites in their city. Since past Thursday, heavy precipitations have been pouring these areas. As a result, firefighters and emergency personnel have been deployed at sites prone to floodings or landslides. In the case of Piemonte, the president of the region noticed that the weather forecast had estimated the range of rainfalls would get worse for the upcoming hours, so authority urged people to be alert and reported having neither death nor injured so far. And parishioners gather in the church of Agios Antonios in Greece to begin the ceremony of the descent of the cross, one of the most symbolic moments of the Christian cult. During this Holy Friday, thousands of people gather in the chapel to commemorate the taking down of the body of Christ from the cross, known as Good Friday. This is the only day in the Orthodox calendar on which there is no Mass. The congregation then proceeded on foot to the local cemetery. Simultaneously, women from the parishes began to decorate the epitaphs to be carried in prostration to the central squares of each community. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find more on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.